Hey everybody, welcome back. This is episode 2 of making Snake in the terminal using C. In this video we're going to cover refactoring the existing code, displaying the score, adding collision and colors, and a few other UI related things. If there's anything you're unfamiliar with in this video, you can always refer back to the first one. We have a lot to cover, so let's just get right into it. Before we get into refactoring, we need to make some of the variables global to work nicely with the functions we're writing. We use preprocessor statements for the max score and frame time for convenience. The score message is just a string that's going to be displayed to the screen showing the score. And skip and isRunning are basically Boolean variables that we're going to use to control the game loop. Once we have our variables set up, we can get started defining the 4 essential game loop functions, which are init, process input, update, and draw. Inside of init, we're basically doing the same thing we did before in main right before the while loop, but we're also using the start color function from ncurses to draw colored text. When initializing the color pairs, we use -1 to indicate that there's no background color for the characters. sprintf here is used to write the score to a string that's going to be printed to the screen later on. Process input is going to be another simple function. We can basically rip the input handling chunk straight from main. The only difference is now we're using some flags. isRunning is what's going to let us quit the game, and skip lets us skip an invalid input. The restart game function resets all of our variables to what they were before we started the program. We then use sprintf to print the new score to the screen, which is 0, and once that's done we set isRunning to true, which will restart the loop. Inside of main, right after calling process input, we check if the skip flag is true. If it is, we set it to false, and then we continue, which is essentially skipping one loop. Inside of update, we're going to call some new functions called collide and collide snake body to check for collisions. So the collide function is pretty simple, just takes 2 points and checks if their x and y values are the same. If they are, then it returns true. For collide snake body, we're basically looping through all of the snake's segments, and if our point collides with any of those segments, we return true. Now we're going to move on to the update function. If the snake collides with itself or the snake exits the screen, the running flag is set to false and the game over function is called. Inside the game over function, we're entering into a new loop where we're taking the player's input and we're just displaying a game over message. If the player presses space, we restart the game. If we press Q, then we quit. We can also use the collide function to check if the snake has eaten a berry. If it does, we use sprintf again to update the score string, and we call the spawnBerry function. To spawn a berry, we keep generating random points inside the grid until we get one that's not colliding with the snake's head or body, and we use that point as the new position for the berry. Inside the draw function, we're doing mostly the same things we did in main before, except now we're using the adder-on function from ncurses, which allows us to use different colors. We're using color pair 1 for the berry, color pair 2, which is green for the snake, and color pair 3 for the border. We're drawing the border at 0, 0, and it has a width of the screen's width and a height of the screen height. Also, we're using mv add str to print the score message to the screen on the top row right in the middle. To draw the border of the screen, we're going to start by printing a special character for the top left corner, and then looping through the width of the screen and drawing horizontal lines for that. Then we draw the top right character. Then after that, we're going to just loop through the height of the screen and draw vertical characters in the first column and the last column. And once we get to the bottom, we're going to draw some special characters for the bottom left corner and the bottom right corner. And then we loop through the width of the screen again and draw horizontal lines to fill that in. And here's what the code for that looks like. We're just doing the same exact steps we were mentioning before. Now we're going to go into main and just erase what was there previously and replace it with update and draw. When the game loop is exited, we're calling the quit game function, which uses endWin to exit ncurses. Then we clear the screen and we print the cursor to the top and exit the application. So if we look at our refactored main, we have some really simple game logic here. We're just calling init before our while loop. Inside the loop, we're processing the input and then updating the variables based on that input and drawing to the screen. Once we exit that loop, we call quit game and we return 0 and the application is done. So here's the final product of the game after refactoring. You can see when we're using these special characters, it makes everything look a little bit cleaner. We have colors working, the snake can collide into itself. If we collide into the border, we're going to die. We can restart the game if we lose. We're keeping track of the score, we're printing that to the top of the screen. And overall it looks pretty good. I think we have a perfectly working snake game running in the terminal. We could still make some additions to this, like spawning multiple berries, maybe adding different berry types, changing the window size based on the user's command. But I'll leave those to you guys to implement on your own. I think they're simple enough, and I'll leave the source code also in a repository in the description. Thanks so much for watching through this video to the end. I just want to mention that the first video got a lot more attention than I expected, and it was a very pleasant surprise, so that motivated me to make this second video. I'm also trying a few new things with the editing just to clean things up and make it a little more digestible. Obviously let me know in the comments what you guys think, and if there are any suggestions for future videos, please let me know. Thank you.